I always forget how late the sun rises in mid-October. I always love like the 7:30 sunrise, but then it always throws me off as well. This morning was actually pretty chilly. I need to harvest a bunch of peppers out of my garden. This might be my last like huge wave of peppers I harvest. I need to go ahead and get those plants out and those beds amended, because that is where I will be planting my garlic here in a week or two. So chilly. We actually do have a few 30s in the forecast next week. I don't know if it's going to get low enough as far as frost goes, which if that's the case, we will be a little late this year, but we are starting to drop a lot faster. We've been averaging like 60s and 50s as lows, and we're starting to average 40s and 50s. So everything here turns really fast. So I want to go ahead and get all that done. This garden's going to be a huge cleanup. This is my biggest garden, so I know the cleanup is going to be that much greater. My bell peppers have been so late this summer, but I'm actually finally starting to get some good ones. Oh, I jinxed myself. Apparently I'm not. This one has like a rotted bottom. Something has to be living in it. That's sad. That was like my biggest one, dang it. I don't know why, but like all of my bell peppers are super small. Like I've never had a problem really with growing bell peppers until last year. Prior to that, the 3 years before that, I had really solid luck growing bell peppers. I don't know, maybe that was beginner's luck, but I've definitely had some issues over the last few years. I have a really pesky squirrel, and I keep throwing a lot of this wasteful produce over in the corner because he keeps getting into my garden. Okay. Oh, that one has two. Oops. I've been getting a lot of questions lately, so I figured I would answer them in this video. My number one question by far is, where do I get my overalls from? And they are from Patagonia. I highly suggest them. They are amazing. I will actually link them down below for you guys. I love them. I've wore them in cooler temps and in warmer temps, and honestly, they are just a great overall. They are like an all-weather overall, so I really love them, and I highly suggest them. They are great. Another question I get often is, can I grow year-round where I am? And the answer to that is no. We actually will be getting our first frost probably by the end of next week, if not the week after. Our average first frost here where I live is like the 15th to the 20th, and we've been consistently late for the last few years. You can see my trellis is really starting to die back, but I refuse to take this down. I have a lot of different loofahs that are starting to brown, so I'm really hoping, I have like 15 more loofahs on this trellis, so I'm really hoping that these will dry out in time before our frost comes, because I'm actually not quite sure if I can dry them otherwise. I actually need to look that up, because I would hate for all these to go to waste, because they're doing really well. They're like, I can tell they're going to change soon. A few of you guys asked me what made me want to document my life, and honestly, I think I've always just wanted to document my life since I was really young. I've always been fascinated with taking pictures and videos, and in high school I learned how to do video editing for broadcasting, and ever since then I never quite like stopped. But I honestly started this channel more during a time where I didn't know if anything would even come of it. I mean, I still don't know if anything will really come of it, but I mean, just to see how much I've changed in the last 3 years is honestly crazy, and I know I've changed a lot in the last 3 years. But I think one thing for me is, if I can make my dreams a reality, and I showed that entire process from day one, like I've used this backyard to my fullest, and if one day I get some acreage and I have the house of my dreams, I'm able to homestead, and I'm able to do all this, it'd be really cool to look back one day at all these videos and show myself that I literally did it. And if it doesn't come of that and something else changes, I mean, it's just really cool to see the flows of life, and I think video documentation is a really cool way to do that. Another question that has been asked a lot is if social media is my job, or do I have something outside of this, or is this my only thing? And social media is my only thing. It has been my only thing for almost 2 years now, but honestly, I could not have done this full time without the support of my husband. Social media takes a lot of work, and to really challenge yourself and to learn and grow takes a lot of time and learning. And honestly, without his support, I don't know if I could have gotten as far as I have to this point. So I'm very thankful. I hope one day I can return the favor and give him just the luxury of what he has given me as far as like time and being able to explore everything I want to explore. I'm forever grateful, and I know I'm in a very fortunate scenario. Honestly, this didn't come about because we have money or anything. Honestly, that we are far from that. We are very frugal people for the most part. I really hate spending money unless it's like quality items. I really have a hard time about it. But we even sold one of our vehicles a few years ago just so we could be down to one vehicle, and it's the vehicle I've had since high school, and it's been paid off for like 7 years. I was one of those people during COVID times that was let go of their job, and we decided, you know, let's just go for it. Let's see what I can do. So again, I'm forever thankful. So you guys also ask all the time where I got this harvest basket. My sister actually got this for me off Etsy 4 years ago for my birthday. I cannot find the original seller for it, but you can find a bunch of these if you just look up harvest baskets. I will say though, it's kind of annoying when it comes to these small peppers. They kind of slip through, and I kind of find cayennes all throughout, so I have to make sure they don't fall out. But other than that, I love this thing because I can just rinse everything through it really fast, and it's like one of my most used garden items. And I really need to get more harvest baskets. I have way too much stuff coming in and out of the garden where I probably actually need like 3 of these things at least. I absolutely love it. Another common question I got was, what is the most challenging thing about homesteading? And I wouldn't even say like I'm homesteading on like a level I would consider like full-blown homesteading, but I will say even on my level, it's a lot of work, and to progress slowly, because if you don't, you'll easily become overwhelmed, especially if you did not grow up living this lifestyle like I did. I'm 5 years deep now, and I finally feel like I am in this groove of all the work not overwhelming me. It took me a while to get there because I was constantly doubling my space for years, and this was my biggest space, and this was the year I also added chickens, and by far it's definitely been the most work, but I think I prepared myself the last 5 years prior, or the last 4 years prior, to get myself to here. So one day I hope to maybe have like 5 to 10 acres. I don't know exactly what I might do, but I would like to really try to grow a year's worth of food, and I know that's going to be a lot of work. So it's just staying consistent and staying on top of the work. Like today, it's making sure I'm going to go ahead and preserve all of this and not just let it sit on my counter and go bad. So I have to make sure I am like planning out a full day like this, or it won't get done, and then it'll be too late, and then I let harvest go to waste. And no one wants to waste stuff, especially when you've been working on growing jalapenos since like, what, March? I think I started jalapenos in March. So we are in October, and I'm still getting some fruit. So that's really exciting. I did not grow up doing anything like this. I was really going down a journey of trying to find a new hobby at the time, being close to 25 years old, and I kind of was just like, yeah, I need something that will take me outside more, and it's just continuously progressed, and I just fell in love with this lifestyle, and I really wanted to document everything I learned in the process, because I know it's It's been a crazy ride. I know there's so many people that are like, yeah, I did not see Bree taking that route. I also got a few questions like, what was my life like growing up? Did I grow up like this? And yeah, I did not grow up like this. Like I said, I gardened 1 year when I was really young. I think I was like 5 or 6 years old, and we never did it again. I mean, when I say very smallly, I think we only grew green beans that year. So I really didn't have exposure to this. I never knew anyone in my family that did anything like this. And again, I didn't grow up around anything like this. I've enjoyed my childhood. I moved a lot. I moved a lot until I moved to Kansas. After that, I kind of slowed down. I moved one more time and then moved back to Kansas, but I moved a lot. And I think as an adult, it really took me a while to learn how to slow down and like settle in. Like this home is the longest I've ever lived anywhere, and I tell my husband all the time, I'm like, it's mind-blowing to me that this is the longest place I've ever lived, because that's how often I was literally moving every year for at least like 8 years. Yeah, it was a lot. So another thing I want to do today is make a fresh batch of elderberry syrup. I have not done this in quite some time, and we are out, and now that we are getting into cooler times, it is needed in the fridge, so I'm gonna do that. While I'm over here though, you guys always ask me for book recommendations, and I obviously don't have that many books, but I have a few that I think are really, really cool. So obviously, as always, I mention this book all the time, The Ball Complete Book of Home Preserving. If you're trying to get into any type of preserving, canning your own food, this book is definitely a must. I honestly didn't think I was going to use it as much as I do, but it's so nice when I randomly have something coming out of the garden and I can just be like, carrots, and it's like, what can I do with carrots? How can I can them? So that's a really nice reference to have. Another book I think is really, really cool is this one here. This one's called Back to Basics, and this is kind of like an everything guide to traditional skills. It has a little bit of everything in here. Like right here we have learning how to do natural dyes. There's all sorts of recipes. You build your own house, homemade ice cream, how to make your own like little kiln scenario, how to make soap out of ash. Like this book is very, very cool as far as like overall traditional skills. Like I honestly need to go back through this book again because there's so much information in this. This is just a really cool book if you are interested in a traditional way of living. I highly suggest. So there was one question I did receive quite a bit, and it was, what am I going to do with all my time come winter once the garden dies back? And I have a lot of different other hobbies and projects, honestly, that I need to catch up on. This blanket here, I started, about 4 weeks ago? Maybe a little over, but I would say I restarted it twice. And ever since restarting it twice, I'm finally getting the hang of crochet down. Honestly, this needs to probably be about like 3 or 4 times bigger than it currently is, but I'm really enjoying crochet. I also want to play around with doing some digital art over the winter. And you know, honestly, I might just play around with a few different things. Really, gardening doesn't fully end. I will still have a lot of cleanup, like I was saying earlier today. When it comes to the garden, I will definitely be cleaning up for a few weeks, and I'll really only have about, I'd say, 8 weeks really off. Really not even that, because I'll be getting my onions started in December, but really full-on seed starting doesn't start till February. But the month of like January is like my most dead month of the year, which is also when it's really dark outside. So I like to have a lot of these hobbies already going by that time. So I'm really excited to dive more into crochet this year. I really think it'd be really cool to do a temperature blanket, just because I think that'd be really cool to correspond with the garden. Another question I was asked was, how do you have time for all of your projects? And honestly, I do have quite a bit of time. I don't have children, and I essentially work from home. So, and my work is my project. So I do have a lot of time to be able to dabble in the things I want to dabble. But I also find a lot of spare moments like this where the elderberries need to cool for the next like 45 minutes to an hour. And I figured I might as well just pull out the blanket and do a few rows of crochet while I wait for that, instead of sitting on my phone. So that, again, I really like crochet for this reason, where I feel active with my hands, but I'm not just scrolling on my phone. I also received the question on what keeps me motivated to continue to try new hobbies. And honestly, I want to learn new skills. Like, I think our generations just stop learning skills once we become an adult. And honestly, a lot of us don't have the time to really pick up a lot of things. But I think it's important to continue to learn and get satisfaction from once not knowing something and then learning how to do it. It can be very frustrating in the beginning. Like I said, I had to completely rip apart this blanket twice, and pretty much 2 weeks worth of me starting this blanket was kind of for waste. But it's just one of those things where you have to get through those little humps and just keep learning new things you want to learn. I think that's part of the excitement of life, and without continuously learning new things you want to learn and acquiring skill sets, I mean, what motivates you? I mean, like, there's so many things I want to learn, and I feel like I don't even have enough time to learn them, because there's just so many things I want to learn in my lifetime. So I prioritize just learning new skills. I also received the question on what got me started cooking from scratch and also preserving my own food. And honestly, like, my mom cooked all the time growing up, so from scratch cooking wasn't like a thing I didn't grow up with. But I will say the level I'm at, where I'm preserving my own food and stuff like that, I definitely did not grow up with. It was just something where I am very passionate about where my food is sourced, and if I can produce my own food that's organic, that's not sprayed, and again, just tastes absolutely phenomenal. Like, food is the motivator. Like, I absolutely love cooking, and when you preserve your own food, those flavors just really intensify, and I think just bring a lot more to the dish. So it really was an exciting thing when I started to garden. I was able to dabble a little bit harder into the whole scratch cooking, and I absolutely love it. I prefer to cook everything from scratch because I am a strong believer that there is a huge difference. I also was asked what is my favorite time of year, and October is like my favorite month of the year. It's always been my favorite month of the year. My birthday's at the end of the month. Halloween's always been my absolute favorite. I love the colors of fall. As an adult and gardening more, I will definitely say spring has almost took hold, but fall still has a really special place in my heart because I love like how my garden still looks beautiful and abundant, but I have these cooler temps and I can go out and enjoy my backyard. Other than where spring, it's just like a complete race to get so many things you thought of done during the winter months. Alright, so we're back at the loofah trellis because one of the questions that was asked was what was the thing I was most proud of in the garden this year, and it's definitely this loofah trellis, especially because last year I was not successful at all. My plants only got a few feet tall and they didn't flower or anything. The one thing that I changed, this was a question as well, was what did I do differently? The location was completely different this year. This is a way sunnier area than the location I had them last year, and I also started them inside this year. I started them 8 weeks early, and by the time they went outside they were already a few feet tall. I did have to be really careful with the vines, especially because I did read that loofah didn't like to be transplanted, so I was like extra careful with these plants. So this is 2 plants actually, and it runs the whole way down. You can see there's been a lot that's been dying back as of recently, and a lot of these are starting to harden off. So once this plant hits frost, it's probably going to be done. So I really hope I get all the rest of these loofahs. It's absolutely crazy and I love it. Someone else asked the question on what do I do to amend the soil from year to year. Typically I will order a big load of compost early spring and top the beds before I plant anything. But if I don't do that, I will go get Black Cow from Home Depot. That's just a manure compost. I do compost myself. But typically I will amend with compost, nothing crazy, and that's typically it. So the last question I will answer this evening is what are my goals for the next 5 years? And honestly, I don't know about the next 5 years just because my last 5 years have been so crazy different. I really just want to keep working on growing my skill sets and like building that type of portfolio where I really can just do all sorts of different things and I can do them fairly well. And I really want to continue to grow in the whole homesteading thing to some degree. I don't know what that might look like. I would love to have 5 to 10 acres, but I don't know if that will be doable. I really hope it is. I really want an A-frame house, but again, that's like even more out there. That's like a dream house scenario, which I don't know if that would happen in 5 years, but if it were to happen in 5 years, that'd be really cool. But I think the long answer is I hope to be doing what I'm doing right now, just on a bigger scale. I love what I'm doing right now and I honestly don't have any complaints.